I feel like
another frustrating loss for the Toronto Blue Jays. Plus, we have a whole lot more to go through in the NFL. Who's the most overrated team in the league going into this year? We'll talk about it. That and a whole lot more as Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out with us here today. As always, presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag. Not wearing any today, actually, but still, go check that out now. seaofdead403.ca. Also, if you need energy for that next gaming session, head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime. There's some great flavors over there to help give you a boost through whatever gaming session or sports watching sesh you have coming up. We got some Blue Jays to talk about as not a great series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We will talk about that. We got a whole lot of NFL, UFC, AEW, WWE to get to. If we're not talking about what you want to talk about, send it in the chat. I will probably finish what I'm doing, and then we'll just pick it back up and get into whatever you want to talk about there. So let them fly, whatever your sports takes are. But let's start with the frustration of the day. The Toronto Blue Jays are comfortably atop the American League East, but they looked a little too comfortable in the series finale against the Pittsburgh Pirates. A whole lot of roster moves to talk about and a really frustrating loss. So let's dive into some Blue Jays talk. The Toronto Blue Jays are still first place in the American League East. That hasn't changed. But this was a frustrating weekend, or week, I guess, start to the week for the Blue Jays, going now into the weekend, as they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And just a frustrating game all around, this last one here. Toronto gets a leadoff home run from George Springer, and they lost 2-1. So you can tell where the bats went immediately after that. They gave up 2 runs in the first inning, and then lost 2-1. And as that first inning was going on, I anticipated coming on here today talking about how Chris Bassett, like no one wants this fourth spot in the postseason rotation all of a sudden, because Barrios isn't pitching very well, Bassett isn't pitching very well. Bassett settled in. He ends up striking out 10. The pitch to Pham in the first inning was frustrating, absolutely, but this was not on Chris Bassett here. This was on an offense that was very obviously missing their top player. And again, don't want to dwell too much on it after we did the video yesterday, but this is why you go out and add a couple of extra bats at the trade deadline, so that if something goes wrong, all of a sudden now you're not just, okay, well, I guess we're a slap hitting ball club all of a sudden. This lineup looks very weak without Vlad Guerrero Jr. in the middle of it, and one player shouldn't make that much of a difference, but he does. And a lot of teams would have trouble without their best player, but right now the Blue Jays are without theirs. And this was a golden opportunity, considering some of the series that they have just played, the schedule they just had, to go into a matchup with the Pittsburgh Pirates that felt like a chance to make up some ground. And instead, they dropped 2 out of 3 to Pittsburgh. So very frustrating with that one. Just an overall kind of putrid, lifeless performance on the offensive side. And it looked like they might get a jump from Alejandro Kirk in the 9th inning, hitting that ball to the wall, but it wasn't enough. And it kind of looked like a ball club where they are used to Vladdy being able to, I don't want to say bail them out, because that hasn't necessarily been the case, but they were just used to having someone else be able to kickstart things. And while Vladdy, recent stretch notwithstanding, has had trouble at times coming up with the big hit, there have been a few times where the big hit has happened while he's been on base, and they just didn't have that fire starter in this game. So someone is going to have to be that going forward. We will see if maybe Shane Bieber is a fire starter for Toronto, as he is now coming back into the starting rotation, or not back into, but into the starting rotation for the first time, as the Blue Jays make that move, bringing him in. I'm excited for it. I'm very fascinated to see how it goes. I'm happy it's happening at the Rogers Center. I'm happy it's happening against not the stiffest of competition, although, again, just lost 2 of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, who can't really say that about anyone right now. But overall, this is, I think, a really good thing and a very interesting thing for the Blue Jays. Toxic in the Twitch chat today asking, how do you think the Blue Jays will manage the rotation now, knowing what we know? So what we know is that Fisher has been sent down. That one, Toxic was asking about that in the chat before we really got going here today. That was not necessarily the move I was anticipating. I kind of thought Nance came into the ball game last night as a, let's get a couple innings out of this guy because we're going to send him down anyway. So it's not a concern if he's tired or not. And that, I thought that was going to be the move. Instead, Fisher is the one who gets sent down after the ball game today, presumably to make room for a Shane Bieber. And the other news kind of coming out is that they didn't say Lauer is moving to the bullpen or anything like that. They just said that Lauer is available this weekend coming out of the bullpen, just in case. I would guess that is insurance, a safety net, if you will, for if something goes wrong with the Biebs. I think that's probably what that is. So my assumption of a 6-man rotation is still what I think they are going to do. And I just think they are, instead of just fully announcing it and then, oh man, whatever. Like, I'm sure that there are multiple plans in place, if this, that, and the other thing. But my guess is that the Lauer's available out of the bullpen is just letting him know and letting everyone know that there is a plan if things kind of go sideways with Bieber. So that's kind of how I assume they're going to be managing it. If Lauer is just the lefty in the bullpen for a little bit, I don't hate that. He certainly has not been the least effective Blue Jays pitcher, and the one that is the most deserving coming out of the bullpen, or coming out of the rotation in the bullpen. But this is some of the management that you have to do in baseball, is that, like Barrios and Bassett, the ceiling is still higher, even though we haven't really seen them knock up against that in a really long time. So it's not the move I would make, but it's the move that I kind of understand. But this is going to be, I think, a very fluid situation as the Blue Jays head toward the postseason. And again, Bassett, it wasn't perfect today. It got a whole lot better as the game went on, but that was a frustrating start to it. But regardless, you got to score more than one against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and that was pretty brutal on Wednesday afternoon. So the Blue Jays have the day off on Thursday before a Friday series begins with the Miami Marlins. If you have more Blue Jays thoughts, if you're watching live, just throw them in the chat. And if you are watching this after the fact, hit me up in the comments. Whatever you agree with or disagree with, let me know down below. We are doing this live on a few different platforms, so if you missed out on the live stream, just letting you know, no live stream on Thursday. We will be back Friday, August the 22nd, as that will be a 10 a.m. Mountain Time start. Again, I know we said that for Wednesday, but had another podcast interview come up, so ended up hanging out with James Lynch, talking some Calgary Flames for a little bit, and just decided at that point, there's a Blue Jays game. Let's wait till the end after that one. So that's what's coming up. Friday is going to be the next live stream. Let's now move to the National Football League as we continue our NFL previews. Yesterday, we took a look at the teams that were the most overrated coming into the NFL season. Today, let's look at the teams that are undervalued for 2025. Here are my picks for the 5 most underrated teams in the NFL going into this upcoming National Football League season. The NFL is a league that is always changing, and from one season to the next, one game to the next, one drive to the next, sometimes it's tough to figure out what's happening. So sometimes it's easy for teams to just cruise under the radar. I got 5 teams that I think people are undervaluing going into this 2025 season. Let's begin with the Arizona Cardinals. They have 8.5 wins is the projected win total from the fine folks out in Las Vegas, Nevada. I actually am quite high on this football team. I think the division is wide open, first and foremost. I think Kyler Murray can still ball out a little bit. Like he probably isn't going to reach the ceiling that people maybe thought he would when he was the first overall pick, but the guy can ball out a little bit. They have a couple very strong running backs. It's another year of development for Marvin Harrison Jr. So I think that this is a team that is going to progress a little bit. And then they added some more pieces on the defensive side. So I think that this is actually a pretty good football team now, going in a division just kind of filled with good but not great. So I think opportunities are there for Arizona to have a season that is above 500, which would get them over this 8.5, which means I think they're being underrated. Up next is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their win total is at 9.5. You have Emeka Egbuka, who looks like he's going to be the real deal. Baker Mayfield is an established dude, and again, the division isn't that strong. I do think Atlanta and Carolina are probably a little bit better than they were a season ago. New Orleans certainly isn't, but I don't think either team has got to the point where I would pick them over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a game on a neutral site. So the Bucs are still in a good spot to get 4 or 5 wins out of that division, and then we only have to get 4 or 5 more, and we're right there with the 9.5. So worried about a couple of injury issues there for sure. And I know the offensive coordinator left town, and that was kind of what was one of the selling points with Baker Mayfield and everything like that. But this is still a good football team surrounded by not good football teams in that division. So I like Tampa Bay as an undervalued team. Up next is the Green Bay Packers. Yes, this is a tough division, but I love this roster so much. I think that they have appropriately focused on the defensive side the last couple of years. You have just an absolute bounty of weapons that Jordan Love can throw the football to. If he can stay healthy, I think that this is genuinely a team that can compete for a Super Bowl. So they should be able to get me to 10 wins. So again, I think that the Packers are an undervalued play at 9.5 wins. Continuing on, our most underrated teams in the NFL going into the 2025 National Football League season. Before we get to those, the final couple, just a reminder, if you want to help spread the word of Couch Potato Diary, hit that share button, send it off to a few people who you like and don't like, just to mix it up a little bit and add some spice to your day. But would really appreciate it if you could kind of spread the love. Minnesota Vikings are up next. They are an 8.5 win football team. I get the concerns at the quarterback position. JJ McCarthy, we just haven't seen it. But I love the rest of this roster. And even with Jalen Addison not being in there for the first few games, with Jefferson, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones at the running back spot. I think they have a very solid offensive line. I think they have a fantastic offensive scheme. And then this defense is very, very good as well. So, like, this is, again, I understand tough division, but they had an amazing season last year. And I think people are forgetting that they got an amazing season out of Sam Darnold. And while that's like, hey, Sam Darnold, pretty solid quarterback now, that wasn't the talk going into last year. Last year, the talk was, well, is Sam Darnold going to be able to do what Kirk Cousins did 2 seasons ago? I think not. Like, he was there to just basically keep the seat warm for J.J. McCarthy to come in and take this job anyway. The fact that they got to a point where they were 1 win away from the number 1 seed in the NFC, improved a few positions, and just have a change at quarterback, changing away from a guy who until last year hadn't done anything anyway, and they got the most out of him. I don't understand it at all. So I think that this is genuinely, I probably should switch the order on this here. I think the Vikings are probably the most underrated team in football going into this upcoming season. The last one on my list, I put them at number 1 just because they had the lowest win total. I have the New York Jets. And I know some of the reports around Jets camp with Justin Fields having some accuracy issues and things like that, it doesn't sound great. But again, I keep coming back to the sell around last season was this is a really good roster. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to do a whole lot. Well, now I think it's still a really good roster, and now Justin Fields doesn't have to do a whole lot. I think with Aaron Glenn there, pushing all the right buttons, I do think Fields has an opportunity to be an upgrade over Aaron Rodgers, so I like the Jets at 5.5 as an underrated team in the NFL for the 2025 season. So those are my picks for the most underrated teams in the National Football League: Arizona, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Minnesota, and the Jets, Jets. What are your thoughts? Do we agree on all 5? Do we disagree on some? Am I completely out to lunch? Let me know either in the chat if you're watching live or in the comments below if you are watching this after the fact. Take Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go. We are available in podcast form on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. So those are the most underrated teams in the NFL for this upcoming season. What about the most underrated players? As we get ready for the fantasy football season, here are the 5 most underrated players in fantasy football for the 2025 season. In fantasy football, we feel like we know. We spent all this offseason figuring out, all right, who are the guys, who aren't the guys? But sometimes, again, some just kind of squeak through the goalies. So today, we're going to look at 5 players who I believe are the most underrated in fantasy football for the upcoming season. And if you are watching live or just watched it before, there's a bit of a crossover with my most underrated teams. Now I have an underrated player from that, and it's Breece Hall. 31st overall is where he is going according to ADP on Fantasy Pros right now. Running back 13, that puts him at, by the way. So I get last year wasn't spectacular, but again, last year wasn't spectacular kind of all over on that team. I still think getting a toxic quarterback out of that room, getting a coach who knows what he is doing into that room, and an offense that could be tailored a little bit more to him, I think that this could be a season where Breece Hall reminds us why we were all so excited about him as a football player going into 2024. So I think Breece Hall could be a steal of a deal at 31st overall in your fantasy drafts and as an RB13. So a high-end running back 2. If he's a running back 2, we're feeling very good about life. Also in that RB2 area, is Chuba Hubbard. 45th overall. He is the running back 18. He showed last year that he can actually do it. I think there were some people who were concerned that maybe it just wasn't going to happen, but he told everyone just deep breath, just it's fine. Everything's good. I'm a pretty good running back. He showed last year that he can be that guy. And now I think this year, again, he basically has the backfield to himself. The football team should be better. And I think with that, there'll be a bit of a rising tide lifting the ship. So I think Chuba Hubbard has a chance to be a pretty good option for fantasy football this year. We have another running back on the list here as Isaiah Pacheco going 61st overall. So 12-team draft. That is back part of round number 5, early round number 6, and going as running back 24. So at the very cusp of being an RB2 into RB3 flex territory. I get when he got hurt and came back, it didn't look great. I fully understand that. But I think now, being a full training camp and year removed from that injury, I think he is going to, again, remind people there's a good running back in there. And I think that he is going to really outperform this value at 61st overall. I think he has an opportunity to be very, very good this season for Kansas City. Again, I think it's going to be an offense that's going to be improved, and I think that he is going to be a very big part of that. Up next, we have a receiver and a quarterback on the most underrated list here for 2025 in fantasy football. But a reminder, we saw it today. It is ever-changing with Couch Potato Diary, so make sure you follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. So just, go give me a follow over there and stay up to date with everything going on around here. All right, 2 players left on the most underrated players going into the NFL for the upcoming season in fantasy football. Ricky Pearsall is going 93rd overall, wide receiver 43. Last year was a season from hell for San Francisco. Now, quarterback situation figured out. Purdy gets his contract. You have Deebo Samuel's gone. Brandon Ayuk is gone for a bit. Pearsall, to this point, hasn't been shot in the offseason, so things already going better for him. I think that this is a chance to be a real breakout season for him. I know the other day, I posted the video of coaches who I think are going to be on the hot seat for the 2025 NFL season, and Kyle Shanahan is on there. That is just if this goes wrong, again, what happens with him? Dude is still a brilliant offensive mind. And so now, with a lot of those pieces out of the way, Pearsall has a chance in what should still be a pretty good offense to put up some big numbers. So I think this is an absolute steal for Pearsall at 93rd overall. And the last one on this list is at the quarterback spot. It is Jordan Love going 130th overall. He is quarterback 18. They went out and got what could be a number 1 wide receiver in the draft in Golden. They have a stacked receiving room. Josh Jacobs is still a solid running back. And the only thing that really limited him last year was health. But I think, again, if he can stay healthy, which you say for basically everyone, he has so many weapons around him. He has a really good coach in Matt LaFleur. And I think that this is going to be a fantasy-friendly offense this year. So I think Jordan Love, if you wait on quarterback, he has an opportunity to do something pretty big with this football team this year. So I think Jordan Love is a steal of a deal at 130th overall and 18th as a quarterback. I think that that's a very solid pickup late in your draft. So what do you guys think? Any underrated players that I missed? Let me know in the chat or in the comments section below, and we can discuss in there as we go along. For those watching live on the chat or live on the stream, there is going to be some more football talk to come. I'm taping a couple of podcasts on this stream today, and so breaking it up. So the football talk is going to be happening again in the next little while. So just letting you know about that. But right now, we shift gears and go into the Ultimate Fighting Championship. UFC 319 went down on Saturday, and we have a big shakeup in the middleweight division, and also a huge shakeup in our pound-for-pound rankings. How does everyone stack up after a dominant performance from a new champion? Let's find out. UFC 319 is now in the books, and whenever there is a UFC pay-per-view, we usually get a pretty big shakeup in the the pound-for-pound rankings, and we certainly have that today. So going to unveil my updated pound-for-pound rankings for the men's side of the UFC. Before we get to that, over in the Kick Chat, it is Pavlovich, who I believe meant to send an angel emoji, instead just typed in emoji angel, and says, hello. So hello to Pavlovich over there in the Kick chat. Also, I'm realizing now that maybe that is just a command that I could see on Kick, but the app that I'm using to see the multiple streams maybe is just not showing it. So yes, there is. Sorry. Actually sent an angel emoji. I apologize for thinking that it wasn't. It just wasn't showing up in the thing that I saw, but that is a very cute emoji. Thank you. Anyway, back to our UFC pound for pound rankings. Before we talk about who is in, because there's obviously someone new in the rankings, we have to talk about who gets knocked out. And this might be, I don't know if it's controversial. Also, anyone calling their own thing, oh, this is going to be controversial. They're probably trying too hard. So I'm just going to say, I think Dricus du Plessis has to come out of the top 10 after that performance. He got absolutely dog-walked by Khamzat Chimaev. And my dog is laying beside me right now. I apologize to you, Bellini, for comparing dogs getting walked to that ass-kicking, because that was brutal. It was so soundly dominant from Khamzat Chimaev to go out and whoop that ass of Dricus du Plessis that I have to take him off the list. I couldn't, after watching that, and maybe there's a recency bias here, but after watching that, I couldn't put him ahead of any of the other guys who are below him on this top 10 list. I couldn't. I really couldn't. So he is the one that comes off of it. In the Kick chat, again, Pavlovich, are you recording this, bro? I am recording this. I'm recording for a podcast, and the videos of each of these segments goes up as their own video on a couple of different platforms once this is all done. So yes, this is being recorded for the podcast that is available again on Spotify and on Apple or wherever else you get your podcasts. So let's get into the top 10, shall we? At number 10, it is still the welterweight champion, Jack Della Maddalena. He got in here after John Jones's retirement. The resume doesn't necessarily scream top 10, but he is still welterweight champion. Some very good performances, some good wins, so he gets in there. At number 9, it is Magomed Ankalaev. At 8 is Alejandro Pantoja. 7, it is the former 205-pound champion in Pereira. I get he is ahead of the guy who beat him for the title, but you win at middleweight, you win at light heavyweight. I've said before, he is someone who I think wants to dare to be great and move up in the heavyweight division as well. I think that this is still someone whose resume deserves him being ahead of the guy who just beat him for the championship. At 6, it's Alex Volkanovski. A couple of huge runs at 145 earns him a spot in the rankings still as the current champion in the featherweight division. We will get to the top 5 in just a second, but make sure you don't miss anything that we do with Couch Potato Diary. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you know next time we are going live. Coming in at number 5 is Tom Aspinall, the now undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Pound for pound lists can be a little bit cruel to heavyweights at times, but when my guy is knocking people out left, right, and center, he's got to get a spot in the top 5. At 4, it is Merab Dvalishvili, someone who I think his talent has warranted him being up here for a long time, and a couple of dominant performances now, earning him a spot in the top 4. So, you've probably recognized that, hey, there's a guy who's new in the list, and he's not in the first 7. Where are we at? Number 3 is Khamzat Chimaev. The new middleweight champion rockets onto the list, and basically, he just took Dricus du Plessis' spot. He went out, took his lunch money, took his title, and now he has taken his spot as the on the podium, really, for the UFC pound for pound rankings. It was so dominant, and he has been that dominant against some pretty big names, beating Robert Whittaker, beating Kamaru Usman, winning fights down at welterweight as well. He has strong performances in multiple different weight classes, so I think now getting that championship allows him to just rocket right up the rankings into the top 3. At number 2 is Islam Makhachev, a dominant fighter at 155 pounds. Now is going to be going for that welterweight championship against Jack Della Maddalena. He gets a win there. He probably moves into the number 1 spot. But at number 1, it has to be Ilia Topuria, who, look, he and I don't view the world the same way on a lot of things, but one thing that we can agree on is that he is an awesome fighter, and his dominance over some very high-level competition has been nothing short of incredible. So Ilia Topuria, the 155-pound champion right now, is also the king of the castle as the pound-for-pound #1 on my UFC power rankings. I can't imagine I just hit 1,000 on things that you agree with watching this video. So let me know. Who do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know in the chat or in the comments after what you think of this pound-for-pound ranking on the men's side. So to update, 10, Jack Della Maddalena. 9, Magomed Ankalaev. 8 is Alejandro Pantoja. 7 is Pahea. 6 is Volkanovski. At 5, it's Tom Aspinall. 4, Merab Dvalishvili. 3, our boy Hamzat. 2 is just simply Makhachev. And at number 1, Ilia Topuria. That's the top 10 for my UFC power rankings right now. Just a reminder, would really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button wherever you're tuning in. Obviously, that means different things on different streaming platforms. So a follow, a subscribe, anything that you could do to help grow this thing, that stuff really does help. I mean, you're already here. Just your mouse is probably close to it. Just slide it on over and just click that button, especially if you're watching on YouTube. Twitch, I understand there's a monetary thing in place with that. So, but, and Kick as well, but would greatly appreciate it if we could get some more follows and get some more subscriptions going so that we can keep these coming out at a regular pace here with Couch Potato Diary. Let's jump into the world of WWE now, as Raw went down on Monday. We had a big announcement, we had a big main event, and honestly, just a really fun show. Let's get into Monday Night Raw. WWE is, they're always on the road somewhere, as everything is happening all at once, always, with World Wrestling Entertainment. But the road to the Clash in Paris got a little bit bumpy for the best of reasons. We will talk about that in just a little bit. But first, again, I really enjoyed this episode of Monday Night Raw. I thought it flew by pretty well, and I never found that it was really dragging at many points for me on this program. I thought the one thing I really liked about it is that it built really well to the main event, and that is one thing. It's been frustrating with the WWE that all the main events have had a lot of DQ finishes and everything that as of late, because they've built to main events, I think, really well. It a little formulaic, set the tone right off the hop, generally with Seth Rollins' group, and then up next, at somewhere during the show, Braun Breaker barks at a guy, and then we set up the main event, generally featuring someone from the Vision, and that's what we do. But that being said, I thought they built to this one very, very well. Paulie saying that Tommy Dreamer may as well be dead was quite the line. Didn't exactly know how to feel about that, but I think Tommy Dreamer probably would have laughed at it, so I'm probably okay with it. A lot of references to the Sandman, and just various other ECW alumni. I thought the Paul Heyman part was absolutely fantastic. I thought he had one of his worst promos ever on Raw a few weeks ago. This one was spectacular and set it up there with Jey Uso, who was trying to get the crowd to go whoa, but all they want to do is yeet. That's all anybody wants to do. Is just bring the house down like that, and just yeet all over the place. But overall, it was great. It set it up, and then you knew you weren't going to get a DQ finish with it being an Extreme Rules match. So I thought a great job setting all of this up. And the thing that I like about it, too, is that this isn't just the Basham brothers behind JBL, right? This isn't just Luke Gallows behind CM Punk. This isn't Wheeler Yuta behind Jon Moxley. They are keeping Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed feeling very strong. And if not main event level, then at least like very close, upper mid card right now. That they have done a good job of making those guys feel like big deals. The big news and the happy news coming out of this is Naomi, as she relinquishes the belt because she is pregnant. They play a clip from a podcast with Stephanie McMahon making the announcement that they are with child. So, look, I'm not going to tell anyone how they should react or how they should view the world or anything like that. If your reaction to someone coming out on national television and announcing they are pregnant is anything other than Aw, that's really great for them. If it's any more negative than that, I feel like you should take a look in the mirror and figure some stuff out. If it is, oh, how irresponsible to get pregnant while she is at this point. Oh, well, did she know she was pregnant at SummerSlam? How could they do the spots where they stepped on her stomach and no. Look, takes a bit of time for people to figure. Oh, hi. Forgot my dog was here. Takes a bit of time for people to figure out that the whole pregnant thing is happening. It's not just like it. Not to get too graphic, but and hey, look at that. I think I'm pregnant. Well, better go wrestle for 4 months. That's not how humans work. So that whole part of it, people can shut the fuck up about that very quickly. And then the whole, oh, it's irresponsible. Well, what a waste. She's having the run of her life and the biggest opportunity, and she's gonna waste it now by having a kid. Again, if that's your response to this, don't want to make generalizations, but you're probably a bad person. Probably a bad hang. Really don't want to spend a whole lot of time with you, basically. So just shut up about that. We have no idea how long they've been trying hard, whatever it is. Also, if they just want to, that's reason enough. So yeah, it's awesome that Naomi is on the run of her life right now. I'm going to suggest that 9, 12, 18, 24 months from now, when Naomi comes back, she's not going to forget how to be awesome. You know, she has worked her way into a spot where with that character and that development that she has had with this character, that she could get over in any era at any time in any promotion. She has got that part figured out. So I don't think that this is going to be an opportunity lost or anything because a human being wanted to start a family. So again, when people start talking about women's bodies and stuff like that, it tends to get pretty gross pretty quickly. So if you are anything less than happy for these human beings that a major life event happened to them, just politely shut the fuck up about it. Anyway, as far as the announcement goes, they do the announcement on the screen. She's obviously emotional about it. It's a huge thing. She starts crying and then flips into character like that. And it was spectacular. It was like, I don't keep a Rolodex. I should keep more on top of it for like year-end things, promo of the year and stuff like that. I don't know how this isn't promo of the year. Announcing that you have a kid, making a reference to a very public breakup you had with the company regarding someone who is close to on top in another company, and using it as a way to tell someone you're not handing them shit and then kind of heel promo off of it was spectacular. Absolutely incredible what she did with that whole thing. So bravo to Naomi on all accounts. I thought it was great. I think it leaves an interesting hole now in the women's division. And what do you do with this now? I think is very interesting. And something that we'll break down as the week kind of goes on here and heading toward Clash in Paris coming up next weekend. But for now, back to the show. I am also interested, and I think it all kind of ties in, but I'm interested in where this Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Kabuki Warriors thing is going, where there's obviously the tension and drama between the Kabuki Warriors and Io, and now Rhea is coming into the mix as well as the, like, I respect you, we are very good at wrestling thing, and so now we should team up against these people. I think it's a very interesting story that can be told with a lot of very fascinating levels along the way. And so when I look at it, and again, we'll talk about what they can do with the Raw Women's title in a couple of days here, I don't know if I want the title back just with one of them. And that is coming again from someone whose favorite wrestler right now is Io Sky. So I just think that this story is captivating enough that there is an opportunity to do something with it and elevate someone else with the championship. It looks like we're getting some advancement in the Judgment Day story a little bit instead of just like weeks and weeks of, oh, well, I mean, yeah, everything's fine. We're winning belts and it's all cool and we're going to be a little bit awkward. Now there's a little bit of like Dom's feeling big. Dom's feeling like he's maybe taking over a little bit, and Finn Balor's feeling a little bit pushed to the side. So we're starting to get some advancement in that. And it hasn't been one of those like, oh, we knew this was coming. Okay, when are we going to do it? Oh, there's the turn. This one was, I think, understated enough and had the injury with Liv so that we just kind of thought a lot of plans we put on hold. But you have that enough that now that there's this advancement, it's, oh, okay. All right, this is interesting. So I like how the WWE isn't always subtle. They were subtle with this, and it worked very effectively, I thought. After that, we get Vikingo. He went after Dom earlier on. I thought Vikingo looked fantastic in this, and it's like we said in the AAA Triple Mania recap. This dude is over in United States and Canada. So like his home promotion, that doesn't seem like it's going to be clicking for him anytime soon. So either like you lean into that and make him heel, which I think you could, or just call him up. Call him up. Main roster, NXT. Lord knows NXT needs the help. So just call him up. Bring him over. I get saying call him up feels very dismissive of AAA. Didn't mean to do that. But bring him over. Bring him over to WWE. I think that probably makes the most sense there. Natalya loses in her match against Becky Lynch, and she came out and was almost playing it up more so than ever, the Natalya character compared to the low-key legend Natty, to really offset the kind of yin and yang of the two characters. And I wonder now, I think like they held the camera on her and on what's her name? Maxine Dupree. They held that camera on them for a bit. And I was like, oh, she's going to deck her. Oh, she's going to deck her. She's going to suplex her on her dome and put her in a sharpshooter. And that's going to be like, come on, we got this. We got this. And we never quite got there. I was like, it's happening soon though. I really do think that they recognize there's something with this now. And I think that we're going to have an elevation of that character into the heel scene. And honestly, I am here for it. I love the character that she has developed with that. So again, overall, a good show. I think there's some interesting progression. There are some things that I'm captivated by on this program. The one thing I do want is that I do wish that these matches felt important. And that is what you get with disqualification after disqualification after disqualification, is that all of a sudden now I go into these matches thinking, okay, well, doesn't matter because wins and losses aren't really going to matter. And it's just that is what it is. I yearn for the days where number one contenders matches didn't just mean, okay, well, this is going to be a triple threat then. And all of those things. I want the matches on Raw to be more than just, this is a match to fill time, because it would be really weird if we just had a soap opera show that ended in fights every month. So I want the matches to mean something again on Raw. But overall, I thought this was a very good show from the WWE. Again, if you want just the wrestling talk, like we are getting to it here about 40 minutes into the podcast today, if you just want the wrestling stuff, there's a place for that. It's called Living Room Lariat, the new wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary. It's all the wrestling stuff from Couch Potato, plus some bonus stuff that you don't get on the podcast. Check that out wherever you get your podcasts. We are going to continue with the wrestling conversation as we get ready for AEW tonight, as All Elite Wrestling is off on the other side of the pond for a trip through the Forbidden Door. But they have one more step to go before they get through that door. Let's talk about it. Get ready for AEW Dynamite with us here tonight. A couple things that we are watching for on the program this evening. First, Adam Page and MJF have their final face-off. And look, like, I do think that the getting MJF flustered into signing his contract for this match was pretty well done and a pretty fun thing. And it's nice to have the babyface get one over on the heel every now and then. I was a little disappointed because we talked about when he got it and started challenging Hangman. I thought there was something creative you could do where they have this match, MJF still has the contract, and you have, like, these guys are in just an absolute battle. MJF has hit him with everything. Hangman won't go down. MJF just brings in a chair and just obliterates Hangman or something, right? Like the diamond ring, whatever, nails him with it. Referee calls for a disqualification. He brings the contract out, hands it in. It's like, hey, I'm cashing this in, and ends up getting the 1, 2, 3. That would be a remarkably bad way to end a pay-per-view. But I think from a storytelling standpoint, hot damn, would that be a fun way to do that? So I feel like with the MJF thing and with the Hurt Business and everything like that, I feel like I am at a point where I don't take any of it fully seriously yet. Not in like a, I'm not buying this character, but in like a, I feel like MJF is a smart enough character that he wouldn't have fallen for having to sign his contract for the thing. Like there's a paper over top of the contract when he signed it. And oh, hey, look at this, it's blank or something along those lines, right? Like probably something more creative than that. But also with the Hurt Business, like all the thumbs down just out of nowhere. It felt so out of nowhere that it feels like it is a plant for something else. So I feel like there is something big and dastardly coming from MJF at Forbidden Door. I don't know if it's the right time already to take the belt off of Hangman Adam Page, but I'm very, very interested in this match coming up on Sunday. I wonder what we get for a go-home feud or a go-home angle or anything, because this kind of just feels built. That this feels like the build has been done. You got a couple videos on Wednesday, and we just have the title match on Sunday. I feel like this is kind of signed, sealed, and delivered. So I'm interested to see what they have for us here tonight. Dude's not what he used to be, but we get Hiroshi Tanahashi on free television in North America, and that's just cool. That's always going to be cool. So I like, it's a 6-man. Yes, he is the 6th of the men that you want to see in a match for any extended period of time. Putting him with Jet Speed is a fun kind of tandem to pair all or to put everyone together with. So I think it's going to be fun. I just overall I want to see more New Japan presence on this show. If this is going to be a AEW New Japan show, this has to feel like an AEW New Japan show. So I want a little bit more than just the president coming in and hitting a high fly flow for a dub or something along those lines. Also, apparently we're getting a face-to-face with Ospreay and Moxley this week. Obviously they're off at they're off in Glasgow, which is not exactly where Will Ospreay is from, but it's close enough that dude I think is going to be over as hell for this particular contest and this particular show. I think we all kind of knew he was going to come back, but it still felt like just a massive return and a massive moment, and he is going to feel like just an uber star when he is over there. I think the pairing of him with Moxley right away is fascinating. I kind of thought Moxley would fade away after this kind of run toward All In happened. The fact that he's kind of hung around, keeping him with Ospreay keeps him in the main event for sure, but it feels like Ospreay's going to get a win here, and it just pushes Moxley further down. But it still feels like a big match and a big moment for Ospreay to get a win over Moxley and get kind of a face-to-face here. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then seeing them all together in that all-star tag match, whatever the hell, is going to be a blast coming up on the weekend. We get the finals of the Tag Team Eliminator Tournament with FTR against Brodido in the finals here. There's been a lot of talk about, the Hurt Business didn't want to, quote unquote, do business with FTR, and so that they're not part of the plans right now. I always push back on rumors like that. We weren't in the room. We don't know exactly what is going on. So I'm not going to look too far into it. I still, I think FTR against Hurt Business would be fun and would be a good match, but like this Brodido team, Brody King and Bandito, it has clicked immediately. It is two guys who I think deserve to be at the top of the card. And I think a win over the Hurt Business, like whoever gets that first win over these guys, it's going to feel like a big deal. The one thing I wouldn't love is if it comes at the end of a tournament, like you have built them up and the tournament has been successful for them in creating this new challenger, right? But in terms of, I think, creating that story that this is this untoppable team against this newly formed group, I feel like that needs to play out for another pay-per-view cycle. So my hope is that these guys get the win in the tournament, lose on Sunday, but then get another opportunity and are able to get that, finally they've done it, win in the tag team division. I think they're a fascinating team and one that I'm really interested going forward. And I think a match with them against Lashley and Benjamin would be fun. I wonder what kind of follow-up we get to Takeshita and his appearances, his successful appearances in the G1 Climax. I'm interested to see what they do with that, any mentions of it, or anything along those lines. So just a few of the things we're going to be watching on AEW Dynamite coming up tonight. Again, we are streaming this live. If you are watching after the fact and want to get it early, it doesn't get any earlier than watching it live. Our next stream is going to be Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Going to be recapping what we saw on AEW on Wednesday night and going over a bunch of other things, getting ready for the PLEs and pay-per-views coming up on the weekend. So pop in and say hi. Next time we are live on multiple different platforms, that one is coming up again Friday at 10 a.m. For those listening in podcast form, that is going to do it for the Wednesday podcast today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag, and make sure you catch Swift Energy. Go to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PK Primetime for the 25% off. For live people watching live on the stream, we're going to keep going. We still got UFC talk to get to, some more. We have some more wrestling conversations to be had as well. Actually, that's incorrect. Sorry, the wrestling part of this is done for right now. But we have some more football coming up, some more NFL and CFL on the stream. So for those watching live, hang tight. For those in podcast form, that's it. Thank you so much for hanging out today. And we're back with the live stream continuing here for what is now going to be the Thursday podcast, covering a lot of different topics here, still going on the live stream, but we're going to dive back in with some talk of UFC 319. As the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC 319, went down on Saturday. Some major performances, some devastating losses, and we're going to get into all of them in today's UFC Stock Report. All right, whose stock went up? Whose stock went down after an eventful UFC card that happened on Saturday night out in Las Vegas, Nevada? No, that didn't happen in Chicago. Sorry. Let's talk about it. UFC Stock Watch. Who went up? Who went down? We'll start positive. We'll start on the high notes. I don't think, look, if you're watching in the stream earlier or listening to podcast yesterday, no one's stock went up more than Khamzat Chimaev, who went from outside of my pound-for-pound top 10 to number 3. It is one of the most dominant performances anyone has ever put together in a championship fight, regardless of if they were the challenger or the champion. It was just absolute control from Khamzat Chimaev, and it was really kind of a culmination of everything we thought he could be into one absolutely dominant performance. And so all the hype we had around him, all of the talk about how dominant and how good he could be and how controlling he could be as a wrestler and a grappler at middleweight or at welterweight, all of it came true. And so now you are looking at, I think, a juggernaut and a real problem at whatever weight class he wants to be in for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, whatever weight class he can make. Anyway, as a champion. Up next, we're not going too far down. It's Lerone Murphy, someone who so many people were talking about as talented fighter, really good striker, very skilled, entertaining fighter, just hasn't had that big moment yet. He comes in and has the big moment, and all of a sudden, he goes from up-and-comer guy that a few people like to probable title challenger next. That is a huge jump for Lerone Murphy, so his stock way up in the UFC right now, especially after UFC 319. And the last one, the guy who made spinning back elbow knockouts cool 15 minutes before Lerone Murphy did, it was Carlos Paredes. It wasn't just the spinning elbow knockout. It was all the strikes leading into it. It was a showcase of a creative, devastating, skilled striker on display against a very, very good, very strong, very technical fighter in Jeff Neal. To be able to put all of that together and showcase the abilities that this guy had, I think is a major plus for him. And that stock is going way up for Carlos Paredes. So that is the first part here of the stock watch. Not all positive, though, as a few of these stocks are trending in the down direction coming out of UFC 319. We will get to them in a second. But first, if you could share this video with your friends, let them know that this is a pretty solid spot to get some good combat sports talk in. That would be greatly appreciated. Love chatting with everyone. We had the chat going. I mean, it's still going now for people live, but love getting the stuff from the chat. Love everyone who is tuned in live and anyone who is watching. I so greatly appreciate it. I just wish you had some friends to talk about it with while we're doing these. So hit up a few friends. Let them know about how much fun we're having chatting UFC here on Couch Potato Diary. So, with some up, there must be some down. And obviously, no one's stock, I think, dropped further on Saturday than Dricus du Plessis. All the stuff about how crazy and weird and everything it can be, that's great when it's going well. But then when it's not, it becomes a problem. Because now you're just being weird for being weird. He tried to defend with chaos rather than technique. It didn't work. It was a big problem for him. And that's the type of ass kicking that you get that people wonder if that will change you as a fighter coming out of it. So the next 12, 18 months in Dricus du Plessis' career going to be very fascinating because the whooping that Khamzat Chimaev put on him on Saturday night. Also, going in the down direction is Jeff Neal. We talked about the spinning back elbow from Carlos Paredes. That's a tough one for Neal. He's coming off of a couple of losses anyway. The stock was already one that people were selling on, and I think this just made the final sell-off complete as he gets knocked out in spectacular fashion, and you just kind of wonder how much higher can this guy go? What is left in the tank for him after something like this? So this was a bit of a, ooh, that's not great. Showing for Jeff Neal. And the last one is Kai Asakura, someone who I think a lot of. He showed some very good technique and talent with his hands. It's just the grappling was such a problem that it seemed to like alter his brain chemistry, where he went from being just a solid, aggressive fighter to, oh man, this guy can also take me down. Shit, I don't really know what to do with that. And it became a problem very quickly for Kai Asakura. So I am hopeful that this gets figured out. But that was a problem on Saturday. That was a big, big problem, that performance. And so when you come off of a title loss in your debut and then follow it up with that type of a showing, all of a sudden now you go from, number 1, number 2 to, 7, 8 in the division. Like that is a steep, steep decline, I think, from a Kai Asakura after that performance on Saturday. So just not great all around for a few fighters, but a very big night and very impactful night, it felt like, for the UFC. More UFC to come, though, as they are now off in China for a fight night card coming up early on Saturday. So thought we would look at it a little bit early today to just make sure that we get this one in and give everyone enough time to figure out what they're doing with this card. Let's do a quick preview of this UFC fight night card from China. The UFC coming off of a pay-per-view is just going to keep on rolling as they have another fight night card this weekend, and thank God it ain't happening in the Apex as the UFC is on the road in China. Really fun main event as Johnny Walker goes up against Zhang Mingyang, who is on a roll. My guy has won 12 in a row, all of them by first round knockout. He's 3-0 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship and is just devastating. This guy is an absolute force. And this is really exciting. Going up against Johnny Walker, who has a style that will bring it out of him, but does not have a resume that you think is going to be overly inhibiting. As Walker has lost back-to-back fights, he knocked out in both of them, and it was a no contest before that one. So you have someone like Walker has been as high as you can get, right? Like title challenging high. Mingyang is on his way up to that. So while it looks like one guy has lost back-to-back fights, the other guy is 3-0 in the UFC and is knocking everybody out. This seems obvious. It isn't, because like we saw it the other day, UFC 319, where Asakura was knocking everyone out before he got a title shot. Tim Elliott has just kind of been hanging around for a while. Doesn't feel like this should be overly threatening. You got to look at who they're fighting, got to look at the different layers and everything like that. So this will be probably the biggest test of Zhang Mingyang's career. I still think he passes it. Like, I think that he is a better fighter than Johnny Walker is. But this isn't just he's going to go out there and steamroll him type of a fight that some people may think if you just looked at recent performances. Co-main event is a massive one. It is a must-win for a couple of guys, as Aljamain Sterling takes on Brian Ortega. Ortega has lost 3 of his last 4. Aljo has lost 2 of his last 3. This is a fight for relevance. The loser here and the road back to a title shot feels almost insurmountable. It kind of does already, to be perfectly blunt on both of these guys, but this is a huge, huge fight in the career of both of these men going into this one. I am of the belief that Aljo has more left in the tank than Ortega does at this point. I think that Aljo, a bit more of a well-rounded fighter than Ortega, so I think Sterling is going to go out and get the job done in the co-main event Saturday, very early morning for those of us here on this half of the world. A couple other fighters to keep an eye on. Waldo Cortez Acosta is looking to stay hot against Sergey Pavlovich. This is, I saw this, like, oh, okay, that's a heavyweight fight. And then you click, it's two guys in the top 7 in the heavyweight rankings right now. I think Waldo Cortez Acosta, the promotion is really hoping that this is a dub for him. Pavlovich, I believe, is the favorite coming into this one. He is picked up a win in his last fight after back-to-back losses, but Pavlovich, we've kind of been there, we've done that, it's whatever. Cortez Acosta is at least a bit of a new face in the division, so we'll see what happens there. He's won 5 straight after his first career loss. I'm interested to see what he can do in this one. I think that this is a live dog going up against Pavlovich, and maybe there is just a little bit of fatigue. Like, okay, cool, this guy's hanging around again. I feel like Cortez Acosta would be the more interesting one to get the win, and so it's not the best fight analysis, but I'll pick him because of that. And also, of note, Kyle Dawkins is returning to the UFC, won 4 straight after leaving the promotion on a losing streak, so he checks back into the octagon coming up on Saturday as well. So that is the fight coverage for Saturday's shows. If anything big happens, we will talk about it on Monday. Let's head back into the world of football now, as the Canadian Football League is back for another week. We are a couple weeks away from Labor Day, and we have a clash of the Titans to close out the week in the CFL, but some intriguing matchups before then. Let's run through the CFL schedule this week. So the CFL is back as we are now past the halfway point of the season. Absolutely wild how fast this season is rolling on, but still, a lot of fun matchups, a lot of interesting games to be had as we approach Labor Day. Also, want to remind you that if you want more CFL content from Mawa, you can get that on 3 Down Nation. I do a best bets piece every week. That's up now. And also, I give my thoughts after every Rider game. So just letting you guys know, there's more of me in the CFL to check out. Let's do our CFL previews here this week. It starts with Winnipeg taking on the Montreal Alouettes. Winnipeg has had some problems, and they do not look like the convincing dominant team that they looked like at the beginning part of the season. Injuries at quarterback have been a problem. Injuries at wide receiver really slowed this team down at various points, and I don't think the defense is as good as maybe they were counting on coming into this season. But that's not close to the problems that Montreal is having right now. They are 2 injuries away from running a raffle to see who is going to get the start at quarterback. It is going to be the person in section 115, row 9, seat R. That's where they are at right now. And I just don't think, while Winnipeg has the problems that they have, I can't imagine that it is going to be to a point where this Montreal team right now is going to be the one that is going to upend the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So I think while Winnipeg is a flawed football team, they ain't that flawed. I think the Bombers come away with a win coming up here on Thursday. Edmonton taking on Ottawa. Not going to give a prediction for this one because they are one of the best bets that I featured in 3 Down, so go check it out for my official prediction on this. But just giving you guys a couple of notes that I'm looking at here, as that this is massive game for both of these teams as they try to stay somewhat relevant in the playoff hunt. I guess, like for Ottawa, if we think Montreal is going to lose, a win here and all of a sudden they're within striking distance of the Alouettes and really kind of upending the apple cart there for this team. So I wonder, like, if that kind of adds a little bit too. But again, for Ottawa, I mean, a win here, they'd be, well, we'll see what happens with BC and with Winnipeg, but they'd be a couple of points back of at least a crossover spot into the CFL's East Division for the postseason. So a really big game, even though it shouldn't feel like that with two teams sitting at 3 wins right now. Just back on the Montreal side of this, AJ Druid in the Twitch chat, James Morgan, the 23rd starter since Calvillo retired. Doesn't surprise me. That might be since Davis Alexander got hurt this year. It has been a real problem keeping quarterbacks healthy there. And it sucks because I think Davis Alexander is the guy in Montreal. Like he's undefeated as a starter at 8-0. I think he is genuinely, legitimately franchise quarterback level guy, could win MLP someday. That is what I think of Davis Alexander. But you need to stay on the field for more than 2 games at a time to be able to get that. So that's the key for Montreal right now. It's going to be tough for them to get back to that. Back on the Edmonton-Ottawa side of it, Edmonton has improved. I was saying you just roll with Trey Ford and you figure it out. You just roll with Trey Ford and you try to figure it out. And they switched with Cody Fajardo 4 weeks ago, and all of a sudden they look like a decent football team now. So, okay, I will admit maybe I lost out on that one. But the one stat that I have in the piece this week for 3 down, Fajardo has only 17 more pass attempts this year than Trey Ford. He has about 300 more passing yards. He's thrown fewer interceptions, and he has thrown more touchdowns than Trey Ford in that time. Like, it is just, everything is going better for them. Once that I didn't put in the best bets, on passes that are, I believe it's 20 yards or more downfield, Trey Ford was completing them at about a 38% clip. Cody Fajardo's completing them at a 60% clip. And those were ending up as interceptions with Trey Ford. They're ending up as touchdowns with Cody Fajardo. He is being much smarter about when he is just airing it out, what he is doing with the football, taking care of it a little bit more. This is still a team that is bottom in the league in time of possession, but they have it at least a little bit more, and that's allowing their defense to look at least a little better than what they have in the past. On the other side of this, for Ottawa, Dustin Crum probably going to get the start. Drew Brown unlikely to play this week. It has been so bad with Crum at quarterback. I am surprised they're going back there again. Like, I think he is fine, but I think him coming in relief against Winnipeg last week is maybe masking a few of the struggles that he has had. Before that game, and I guess even still including that game, his high for a game this season is 235 pass yards. 14 quarterbacks in the league have had more passing yards in a game than that cat has this season as their kind of high. With him at quarterback as the starter again, 3 games, they've averaged 17 points a game. It's just not a good offense when this guy is at the helm. And so, again, not going to give the pick, but you can probably see where I'm leaning going into that one on Friday night. AJ Druid again in the chat. Alexander is the guy we know. We know that he has to stay healthy. That's all. That completely agree. Like it has to be better. It has to be better than anything that we are seeing with him. But if he can just stay healthy, I do think there is genuinely a pretty special quarterback there that Montreal may have. The BC Lions taking on the Toronto Argonauts in a matchup coming up. I believe that's an early one on Saturday, which is weird because it's early and it's BC traveling. So it's like a noon body clock time for them as they play out at 3 o'clock in Toronto. Nathan Rourke is figuring it out. We talked about it in the power rankings and everything. This guy is looking like the best player in the CFL right now. Last 2 weeks, he's averaging 395 yards and 3 touchdowns a game. That is insane. He has been just unstoppable for this team. And the Argos defense is struggling mightily. They're the only team in the league that is allowing over 30 points a game this season on average. And the stat that just blew me away, I think it is 4 teams in the league have had their highest point total of the season against the Toronto Argonauts this season. Also, I'm fairly Edmonton, it was back-to-back teams got that. Edmonton broke that streak by just having their 2nd highest point total of the season against the Argos, and Montreal is 3rd, had their 3rd best scoring day of the year against Toronto. Like, this team is just handing out points to everybody. So while Arbuckle and this offense can step up, there's no outscoring Nathan Rourke in this matchup, I don't think. And then the last one, it's the top two teams in the league facing off at McMahon. I'm going to be in attendance for it. Can't wait. Going to be exciting. I don't know how this one's going to go. I think that it is a real battle. AJ Druid in the chat saying, give me the Stamps over the Riders. I do think, and maybe this is homerism and whatever, I do think the Riders have found another level since that game against the Stampeders, where Calgary being the one in 8-1. And look, Calgary's a very good football team. There is no question about that. I just feel like Saskatchewan has found another level on the offensive side. I think that they have found a real other gear on defense with what this defensive line has been able to do. It's been 8 quarters since they've allowed a touchdown, and they've scored about 70 points since then. This team is looking like a juggernaut again, and they are a very, very fascinating team and a very difficult team to beat. I think that they have another level than Calgary does right now. I think it's going to be a hell of a football game. I can't wait to see it coming up on Saturday, and I think we're going to learn a lot. This is a massive game. If Saskatchewan wins, that's a real nice cushion to have going into your Labor Day double dip against Winnipeg If Calgary wins, then they have 2 games coming up against Edmonton, who we just talked about is playing better, but not that much better. All of a sudden, that feels much more attainable. So this is just a gigantic swing game in the CFL's West Division. Can't wait for it coming up on Saturday night. AJ Druid, given their picks in the chat, let me know what you think in the chat or in the comments below as we get ready for another week in the Canadian Football League. Let's go back to 4-down football now. 4-Down Nation maybe doesn't roll off the tongue as a blog name or a website name just as much as 3-Down does, where, again, you can get all of my CFL content written out. Anyway, but into the NFL as we get ready for the 2025 season. Obviously, at this time of year, every coach is going to tell you, you know what? Goal is the Super Bowl. Super Bowl or bust. We are a team that is focusing on wins and losses, and so we have that pressure in this room that we need to be Super Bowl champions. That's not true. Not every team has the most amount of pressure on it, but some teams have it a lot. So let's look at the 5 teams that just need it the most. The 5 teams under the most pressure in the 2025 NFL season. Who needs it the most in the NFL this year? Let's break it down as we continue our 2025 NFL previews. Honorable mention goes to the Detroit Lions. I put honorable mention here because this is easily the best stretch this franchise has had in my lifetime and probably beyond. So it is tough to say, man, win more, because who knows, right? But they've been so close for so long. They have a lot of losses in the coaching department and on that offensive line, but this is still a team that has been close enough for a while that I think there is pressure for them to take that next step and at least play for a Super Bowl. But because of the low nature of the bar that they've had to clear for the last little bit, I don't think that pressure is on them just quite yet to the level of some of these other teams. So coming in at number 5 is the Chicago Bears. And now pressure means different things for different teams, as I said kind of in the open of this. For the Bears, I think there is an immense pressure to take a giant step forward this year. They made a move that everyone applauded as this giant thing that they were able to make this big splash, trading picks with Carolina, and look at that, they've ended up with Caleb Williams. Well, then year 1 happened, and this guy who was the most hyped prospect that we had had since Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, whatever delineation you wanted to put on, this was a Heisman Trophy winner coming out of USC that everyone had pegged for a year as the number 1 overall pick, and it didn't go great in year number 1. I think there is incredible pressure in Chicago to make this look significantly better than what it did a season ago. So is it Super Bowl or bust in Chicago? I don't think so. But is the pressure on them probably greater than a lot of other teams in the league? I would say yes, it is. At number 4, it is the LA Rams. Recent Super Bowl champions. So again, that pressure not necessarily as much. This one is more a race against time with their quarterback, Matthew Stafford. And you are already seeing the signs of aging with Stafford having the back problems here in training camp. This is a team that's still, I think that they recovered really well after championship year. They sold a lot of draft picks to make that push to get to that level. You would think there would be a bit of a falling off, and there was a touch of one, but they, scouting, developing, everything, they found a few diamonds in the rough and did a great job of rebuilding specifically that defense, but then finding the next wave on offense with Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua. So I don't think that if once Matthew Stafford leaves, it is going to be the Patriots turning to Jacoby Brissett and Mac Jones, but I do think that there is pressure to still win while you have that guy as your quarterback and try to take advantage of that instead of, well, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo or we'll find something. So I think there's some pressure on them. At number 3, it's kind of similar to the Chicago Bears. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think the pressure is necessarily on the coach. He's a first-time coach. The GM probably. Well, no, first-time GM there, or new GM there anyway. But the pressure's on Trevor Lawrence. Again, like we talked about how Caleb Williams was the most hyped, whatever. Trevor Lawrence was can't miss. This was as stone cold of a lock to come in and not just play well, but to change a franchise that we had had in a really long time. And it hasn't worked. And you can very much make the compelling arguments that he has not been given the offensive line or the weapons to help support him. But I take you back to his draft time, and that wasn't supposed to matter with him. Is that an unfair bar to set? You're gosh darn right it is. But this guy was supposed to be transformative for Jacksonville, and it just hasn't been. So this is, I don't think they've given him enough, again, going into this season, but this is a year that I think it has to turn around there, or else serious questions are going to be asked about the future of Trevor Lawrence. I think a lot of people have already written him off. This is going to be kind of the last dance year for me with him. The next two are in the Super Bowl or bust category. It's the Baltimore Ravens. They are under significant pressure for the upcoming NFL season when you look at having Lamar Jackson, this whole era of Lamar Jackson football, and trying to make a run toward a championship. And every time it seems like they get close, either, it's a lot of times fumbles around the goal line, to be perfectly honest, and that ends up being the dagger for them. They have come close. They have had elite talent for a while. Last year kind of felt like it was the chance for them, given how good they played in the regular season. It didn't happen. But that pressure, I think, is really starting to mount for this team to break through in a real big-time way, whether it be past the Chiefs, the Bengals, or the team that's number 1 on this list, the Buffalo Bills. As Josh Allen gets them to an AFC championship game. They had the ball with an opportunity to strike against Kansas City, and they couldn't quite pull it off. Not Josh Allen's fault. I'm not saying, like, he does not have the pressure, I guess, that some of these guys do, where it's like, boy, is this guy going to figure it out? He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, at like number 1 or 2 or 3, depending on where you're at. I guess some may have him 4. But this is genuinely one of the best players in the league in Josh Allen. And they've had him there for a while and don't have a Super Bowl appearance to show for it. I feel like the pressure is really going to start to mount on Buffalo if it is another trip to the Super Bowl for Kansas City, another disappointing playoff loss. I feel like the Buffalo Bills are the team this year that has the most pressure on them in the National Football League. Let me know your thoughts. Am I out to lunch in thinking that Buffalo has all of that pressure on them? Let me know. Comments below or over in the chat there, depending if you're watching live or not. One more bit of NFL talk before we put a bow on this one today. We've talked about who are the biggest players, the best players, I guess, in the National Football League this season. But who are the most important players? I have put together a list of 5 guys who I think could really decide this season, a few swing players in the NFL who could really turn a few things on a dime this upcoming National Football League season. So let's talk about the players who could decide this NFL year. Which players hold the fate of the 2025 NFL season in their hands? These are the 5 guys. There's technically more than 5. We'll get to that in a second. But these are the 5 that I think really do hold the fate, like I said, have the chance to decide the NFL season. At number 5, the reason why I said it's more than 5 dudes, because this one's 5 humans. It's the Texans' offensive line. You may be thinking, what, really? Yes, really, for one. For two, you look back a couple of years ago at CJ Stroud and what he was able to do. Rookie coming in, absolutely incredible. Fantasy star, this, that, and the other thing. Last year was a pretty obvious step back. They still won the division because the division sucks. If this Texans team can get back to that level of a couple of years ago, all of a sudden things get real topsy-turvy in the AFC, because we're all talking Kansas City, we're all talking Buffalo, we're all talking Baltimore. The Houston Texans, I think, have the best chance of any of getting into that conversation and maybe passing a couple on their way in there. I love the coach in D'Amico Ryans and the way that they have coached up that defense. I think CJ Stroud is genuinely a very high-level talent. And the fact that he is going where he is in fantasy drafts and not coming up in best quarterback conversations, I think is a failure of this offense. And I think it is because the offensive line is a little shaky. They traded their best offensive lineman in the offseason. I don't think they replaced him with a whole lot. The reason I have these guys only at 5 is, even if this offensive line is mid, Stroud and this offense is enough that it's probably going to win the division anyway. But with a solid offensive line, I think that this team could win the Super Bowl. I think that highly of the talent that they have around CJ Stroud. I think that highly of CJ Stroud as a quarterback and a leader. And I think that highly of the coaching staff that has been assembled there. I really think this team could be a genuine contender if that offensive line can hold up. So they, I think, have the opportunity to really swing this NFL season. At number 4, it's Drake May. We're now into the quarterback portion of this. I would love to not have it just be quarterback, but it is. So at number 4, it is Drake May. If he has taken the step that Mac Jones couldn't, and if the offensive line is improved and the weapons around him are improved, then this all of a sudden becomes a really intriguing team in the AFC playoff race. I don't think they compete for a division championship this year, but I do think that they compete for a playoff spot if Drake May has taken that step forward. And because of that now, a good team probably has to get bumped out. It makes it much more competitive and difficult for the Buffalo Bills, who are going to be competing for the first overall seed in the AFC. It makes it very difficult, I think, for the Jets and Dolphins, both of whom probably have some aspirations of improving. Makes it very difficult for them to do that. And when you look at how competitive we think the AFC West is going to be, where potentially 3 playoff teams could come out of that. You look at the North, potentially 3 playoff teams could come out of that. I'm not of that belief, but 3 playoff teams could come out of that. If Drake May, like, we've already reached too many playoff teams, and we still have multiple division winners to go. If Drake May can knock one of those teams out, then all of a sudden we are talking about some high-level football teams that are going to have massively, massively disappointing seasons. So that's why I think he is a player that can decide the NFL season. At 3, it's Bo Nix. This is a great roster that Denver has accumulated. If you haven't seen the video we did on it yet, I have the Broncos as having the 5th most talented roster in the National Football League for this upcoming year. Bo Nix was very good last year. I kind of think that's where he stays. I don't think there is this massive progression for him in year 2 or on down the line. I think because of the time he had in college, this is a bit more of a finished product, which is fine because that product was good. That product got them to the playoffs. If there is even a small amount of growth in him with what they have, with Sean Payton, who I will begrudgingly admit is a good coach, and the weapons they have on that offense and the immense amount of talent they have on the defense, this team could win this division. And now we are talking about Patrick Mahomes not having home field advantage throughout the AFC. We are talking about Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs having to play in the wild card game and at some point having to hit the road probably for a trip back to the Super Bowl. And I think it really changes the math on a lot of different situations in the AFC if the Denver Broncos can be a real, genuine, legitimate challenge to the Kansas City Chiefs this season. At number 2, I have Justin Fields. Kind of the same, it's a mix of the last 2 guys that we talked about. Because if Justin Fields can be the Justin Fields that a lot of people thought he could be coming out of Ohio State, then I think with this Jets roster, that's a playoff team. Yeah. Now, that is asking for 100% of Justin Fields and 100% of something we haven't seen from him so far. But if he can just be better than Aaron Rodgers, which I think he can be, and if he can be 75% of what we thought this guy could be, I still think this is a team that is threatening for a playoff spot. And so again, it's kind of like the Drake May conversation, where all of a sudden Buffalo's path to the number 1 seed in that first round bye becomes a lot more difficult. And again, we are talking about multiple teams in the AFC who feel like they should be at least playoff or bust. And if the Jets are in that conversation, then again, a very good team is out of it. So maybe Fields is a little bit too high, but a lot of it too is I am putting a lot of faith in them on a few of these projections. And so I think that the Jets have a lot of variance in what they could be. And I think both sides of it really do change how this season goes. But at number 1, it's JJ McCarthy, because if he is great, I will even say if he is good, the Vikings could win a Super Bowl. So like with a couple of these other ones, with Knicks, it's, well, they could maybe win the division and maybe challenge Patrick Mahomes, and now all of a sudden he's on the road and da-da-da-da-da. And Drake May and Justin Fields, well, they can make life more difficult on Josh Allen. And so you kind of get the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the strings and everything attached to how will this decide this, that, and the other thing. With JJ McCarthy, it is simple. If he is good, straight line, trip to the Super Bowl. That is how good the rest of this roster is. If he can be something reasonable at quarterback, then this is a championship level roster. If he is just a rookie disaster, and I get he's not technically a rookie, but if he is basically a rookie disaster, then this division is too good and it will eat them up very, very quickly. And it provides a much easier path for the Detroit Lions, for the Green Bay Packers, a team that we said had a lot of pressure on them in the Chicago Bears. Like it makes life so much easier and a bit more wild in that NFC North if the Vikings just have a bad quarterback. But if he is good, I think this is a fantastic football team that could win a Super Bowl. So that's why I think the player that could swing the NFL the most this season is JJ McCarthy. He is my number 1 player who could decide the NFL for 2025. All right, that is going to do it for the show today. For those watching on the stream, we're at an hour and a half. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. For those in podcast form, thanks for tuning in. If you are listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are tuning in. Helps the show out incredibly if you could do that. It's a one-man operation around here. I would really appreciate as much support as you guys could give me. If you're watching this, whether it's live or after the fact, hit follow, subscribe, whatever you can do. That would be great. Hit the like button. Share this video with your friends, and let's keep the sports talk going. Really happy with the shows that we've been doing as of late, and just want to spread that to more people, so that would be greatly appreciated. We are, as always, presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag, and also check out swiftenergy.gg and use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Sorry, Connor D, that you are late. Really love the chats that we get to have in here when you're hanging out on the YouTube streams. We will be back on Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Going to be chatting, again, some more wrestling, some more NFL in there as well. So that is the next time we'll be live chatting with all you guys. Again, have a great rest of your day, everybody, and talk to you guys on Friday. That's it. Bye.